guys, Cody Davis here, 10-0 undefeated professional boxer from Wales. Just finished my podcast with Ace Podcast Nation. Subscribe at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation for the best content on all the Welsh boxing shows, all Welsh sport and Welsh boxing and sport in general. All the best.
Champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 52. We are hurtling along and joining us this evening to talk a bit of MMA is, as usual, first of all, former Cage Warriors champion, legend of the UK MMA scene. It is Mr. Danny Batten. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, you are, Sai. It's Jack and Richard. Good to have you guys on.
Indeed. So we have not one, but two guests this evening. First of all, we have UFC Bantamweight, and in my opinion, future UFC champion, Mr. Jack Tank Shaw. Welcome, Jack. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. All good. Well, I'd be better if I had a fight 2 weeks ago, but other than that, I'm all right.
I know, I was gutted about that. I was gutted, so imagine how you feel. And of course, as well, we have one of the best coaches in UK MMA, if not the world, is none other than Mr. Richard Shaw. Welcome, Richard. How are you, mate?
All good, Saint. Thanks for having us back on, mate.
Indeed, I'm very glad to have both of you back, of course, and both at the same time. It's even better. I like varies it up a bit. Two guests. So we are going to change up the format a little bit. We're going to, instead of going match by match, fight by fight, and kind of going into loads of detail, we're going to have a good long chat with Jack and Richard. And then me and Danny will go into a bit of detail after they chip off because they're very busy. So where I'd like to start, guys, is what was 2020 like for Jack Shaw? Would you count it as a good year, a bad year? How are you feeling about it?
50-50. It could have been a lot better, but I thought it could have been a lot worse. Obviously, I was meant to fight in March. That got obviously pulled when the lockdowns first came into effect with COVID-19. And to be honest, at that stage, I think me and a lot of the British fighters sort of thought the year was going to be a write-off because obviously we didn't know how serious or how unserious this sort of lockdown and the pandemic was going to be. We didn't know if we'd be able to travel. We didn't know if there'd be any UFC events going on. So yeah, we didn't know if the gyms would be open, and obviously it was all up in there. We didn't know what was what. Obviously we managed to fight on Fight Island, so that was a good positive for the year. I had a fight out there, good win, unbelievable experience with obviously being in the bubble on Fight Island and experiencing the fight with no crowd and obviously fighting in the mix of a global pandemic is one to look back on. And then obviously the year went a little bit sour again towards the end. We had to fight in Vegas in November, which again would have been another big landmark for me and the team. And then obviously that one got cancelled. So, like I said, it could have been worse, but it also could have been a lot better. I mean, looking back, it hasn't been a great year in the sense of fighting and training, but there's been plenty of positives, I suppose, outside of the sport that I can focus on. So it's one of them ones I'm looking forward to 2021 to put it that way.
Yeah, Richard, how do you feel as his head coach as well as his father? Like, it's been a weird one, hasn't it, with the pandemic and everything.
It's been a weird one. I mean, Jack, Brett and Marshman really been fortunate that there's still been events put on that they can go and compete on. I feel more sorry, if I'm honest, for the amateur team. The amateurs have gone 12 months now. They've lost a year without any sort of competition. And Jack, agree with me on this. We've got a team of youngsters coming through, which we'd have probably had 4, 5, 6 bouts each per for the last 12 months. So they set them back a little bit. We've got a bit of catching up to do, but as Jack says, there's been positives. We managed to get the elite level status in place. So, the pros and the high level amateurs have managed to get some consistent quality training in. I think just 2020, we're going to have to write it off. It's one of those things. I mean, nobody, we opened the gym up bloody a year ago, last November, and everything was flying. January, February, March was brilliant. And then all of a sudden, wallop, we closed down for 4 months. You can't travel, you can't train, you can't open the gym. But, we've come away. Jack's managed to get one fight in. I think Brett Johnson's had 2, hasn't he? Jack, has he had 2? He had 1.
Yeah.
2. Marshman ended up fighting the end of the year. But yeah, what we do, guys, is out of our hands. It's out of our hands. We just have to make the best of a bad situation. I mean, our Jack has had disappointment after disappointment. We had a good result out in Abu Dhabi, but we obviously had the London card was a big one for us. We were really looking forward to that. That would have been the second fight, first fight on home soil, and I think with a crowd, particularly after the way the ice arena atmospheres were, I think we'd have seen something special with him walking out in London. But unfortunately, we still have to wait, I think, until this pandemic is done and we can get some people in the arenas and some spectators back under closed rules. But yeah, it's been a bad year, but we made the best of a bad situation. Like I said, the elite guys have managed to get some quality training in, and I think next year, when I do release the amateurs, you'll see some really high level guys because they've had a 12 month to get better. We try to take the positives out of it.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that London show. I was hoping we might see Jack coming out to a bit of Oasis again, but not enough fighters, in my opinion, coming out to Oasis these days. That's another story. Like me and Daddy were talking about Jack, I think probably 3 episodes ago, so like 3 weeks ago we were talking, because obviously at that point your fight was still on, and we were kind of speculating on some of the guys that we'd like to see you fight, over the next year or so. And I think we came to the conclusion we'd like to see you fight some legends, wasn't it, Dan?
Oh yeah.
Have Jack Shaw become the legend killer and just go fight some of the big names who are perhaps a bit lower down the rankings now for whatever reason. But some of the divisions in the UFC are insane, and the bantamweight is one of those divisions. Like the talent pool is so deep. Do you find that's what I was going to ask you, Jack? From the outside, it seems like a lot of people don't want to fight you, so you have a lot of trouble getting opponents. Is that a fair comment? Like,
yeah, I don't think it's so much that they're scared or anything like that, but I'm in a bit of a tricky spot where I'm not currently ranked at the minute. Then, so anyone sort of with a ranking next to their name, or anyone who's on the verge of being ranked, is probably not going to be in a hurry to fight me because, although despite not being ranked and not being perhaps such a big name in the UFC, it's obviously a potential fight they could lose. They only got to look at my sort of style and my record to see that I'm in with a shout of beating anyone in the division. So it's as if the guys in front of me are not going to, rush to fight me because they're not going to give up that spot and that position, in the top fight. And then on the flip side, I think the people that are on the same sort of middle level as me are not going to rush to fight me because if they lose to me, it puts them back a couple of steps. So it's a tough one at the minute. Obviously, the division is stacked. I mean, every show I watch at the minute, there seems to be a bantamweight fight with a guy that I've never heard of, and you watch it and think, he's a tasty guy, and he's going to be one for the food that we might end up, coming at the crossroads with. But if you're in the UFC at the end of the day, I think it comes to a point where you've got to be prepared to fight anyone. Unfortunately, I don't think that everyone sort of has that mindset. But now in the new year, the matchmakers can start putting a little bit of pressure on guys. Because a lot of times, we've been offered a name, and then 4 or 5 days later, the contract still hasn't come through, and next thing you know, there's an excuse. It's like, well, what has changed in the 4 or 5 days? Like, surely they wouldn't offer you the name in the first place if the guy wasn't available. Like, we've never ever turned down a fight or been offered a fight and gone back and said, well, I don't know about that. Every single time, whether it's a fight that we think is very winnable or a fight that we think is going to be a tough one, we never ever said no, or never even really contemplated saying no. We just accepted it and sort of gone on with the mindset of we'll find a way to win. But unfortunately, that hasn't gone tenfold. Like I can probably count 5, 6, 7 guys over the space of, well, I've had 2 fights in the UFC and 2 cancelled, so over 4 fights or 4 potential fights. I can count probably 6, 7 names that we've been offered that we haven't ended up signing the contract for. So, it's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned new names there. Danny, we've talked, about the one thing which has come out of this year for the UFC is you've seen some new names coming through and really impressing. And obviously one of the sort of big news stories over the last week or so has been the Leon Edwards versus Chimaev, who's obviously one of those names who's come in and torn it up. That fight's postponed for the time being. I think, is it Leon Edwards has got COVID, or he tested positive for COVID, I think. Yeah. I know we were looking forward to that one. Danny, you tell us a bit about your disappointment around that fight being off, and also how you think that fight might go when it gets rescheduled.
I think it's going to be fireworks. I really rate Leon Edwards. I've always said in the previous podcast how I feel that he hasn't got the attention he deserves. This guy, he's got some serious credentials to his name, and it's just not been put up into the mix as much as I felt that he should have. This guy will not shy away from so much. He'll take it to him. He's not going to be backing off. He's not going to be shy at those takedown attempts. We've seen him stuff many good wrestlers takedowns and aggressive to striking. So I think, regards to the fight, I think it's a great matchup. I think it'll be a good fight. I think it's really, really hard to predict who's actually going to win through with that, because we've not seen Chimov tested at this stage. But yeah, gutted that it's not going to go ahead. But the good thing is it's still to come. So we just got to get it happening. It won't happen until next year now. Gutting, but it's disappointment is something that we're all getting used to now. Regards this COVID keep interrupting things. Disappointment with us being able to train regularly over here and in other countries with our gyms, and disappointment where fights get called off as they're approaching because people are getting infected. But things move on, and we're seeing new blood come through. I think with Jack's situation, I just think just sit in there tight, because some of these fighters are itching to get fighting. At the end of the day, they ain't getting paid unless they're getting fights. So something will come through for you for sure, because they don't want to sit on the sidelines for too long. Everyone wants to get their cage time in, and your time's going to come. And the good thing is you've got age on your side, so you can just wait it out. A lot of these other guys ain't getting any younger. But I'm in total agreement with what Si was saying as well about your career. I'd love to see you take out, these legends that are past their peak, but nevertheless are legends, and to try and get a notch on your bedpost, so to speak. Trying to take out one of those top names, I think would be great for you, and I think you're truly capable of taking some of those top scouts out.
What names did you say, Dan, like the other week? What names did you guys think of?
I'd love him to fight someone like Aldo.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one.
Superb. Yeah,
Uriah Faber.
Yeah. Another good one for the mix. I think these will be superb. I mean, they're not what they used to be, but they can still beat people in the top 10. And but I just think you've got the game to stifle them. I think you've got the youth on your side, the tenacity, the hunger, and I think then everything will open up to you, regards other fighters being willing to take you on. But yeah, it'll all come good for you. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. Yeah, I think the three which we kind of came to was Aldo, Uriah Faber, and I think it was who else was it? I can't remember who the third one was. It'll come to me in a minute. But obviously, Rich, you and Jack were out in a Fight Island when Chimaev came onto the scene. He obviously fought John, and then he fought Reese McKee on short notice, which I thought that was brutal for Reese to come in and make his debut. on short notice against a fighter like that. But going to take the opportunity. Any fighter's going to take that opportunity to make their UFC debut if they're offered it. But what was he like up close, Chimaev, as a fighter? Do you think?
I think he's a massive talent, and but again, we can't get too carried away. I mean, he's beaten 3 solid guys, but nobody really this top 15. Leon would have been an absolute marker for him. I mean, if he got through Leon Edwards, you could say, yeah, he's legit, he's a real deal. I've watched him, and I genuinely do think that we're going to see something special come through. But at the same time, we were saying the same thing about Johnny Walker 2 years ago when he came on the scene, started knocking everybody out, and people were using his name to say he was going to be the guy to beat John Jones. Over a period of 12 months, he's lost a couple of bouts. So until he fights that upper tier level fight, that it's going to be difficult really for us to put a marker on him. Stylistically, he's fought 3 guys which suits his styles. I think Reese and John will be the first to say probably wrestling's on their strongest point. Same with his last fight. How do you pronounce his name? How do you pronounce his surname? Yeah. He's a decent grappler, but he's not a great wrestler. So it'd be interesting to see him against someone like Leon, who's very, very good level striker, good wrestling defense. And I think a win for either guy really would have put him in the title picture, because I think with the hype that's coming with the old Wolf, I think if Leon had seen him off, I think Dana's hands would have been tied. He'd have had to give him that next title fight, But it'd be interesting to see how he gets on against one of the top 5 guys, But at the moment, I think the way he's shifting up and down the weights, and we have a laugh and a joke with some of the guys at our gym, but I do believe he's capable of possibly becoming like a 3-weight champion. He's that good.
Be interesting. What Jack? What did John Phillips say about him facing him? Was there anything which stood out about him from the bout?
I haven't really spoken to John obviously specifically about the fight, but I mean it was just evident to see how high level, not just his wrestling, but he's that typical sort of Russian MMA grappler as well. Hit the top position, wasn't interested in Jason Subs, was happy to, and you see now against Reese as well, was happy to just very, very Khabib-esque in the sense of he's happy to not just hold on to you, but to secure position and really go to work with his punches and almost sort of torture you in a sense. There was times where there was probably submissions he could have got, but he was just happy to sit in position and obviously work away. And I mean, I saw him in person after the fight up at the pool. My old man and Carl was in bed, and I couldn't sleep, so I went to the pool. I think it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and he was up there with I'm assuming it's his girlfriend, but he's a monster of a bloke. He's massive, and at welterweight, I think he's probably even. I mean, he looked big for middleweight, so at welterweight, he's even bigger again. So. Like we said, I know we have a mess about with the boys and saying we're all aboard the hype train, but he's talking in interviews about fighting at heavyweight, like the heavyweight, and I think all that sort of mentality. He's not just saying it; he can fight anyone, sort of any way. So yeah, I mean, if he gets through Leon, who's obviously an elite level guy, he probably should have fought for the belt already. If he gets through Leon, then he lets us know sort of where he sits. If he gets to him, I wouldn't be surprised to see him fighting for the belt next. On the flip side, if Leon beats him, although he's not top 10 ranked, he's just taking all the hype and he's probably going to push him into the title picture. So it would have been a good fight. So hopefully they get out and rebooked early next year so we can actually see it. But then again, now Wolf is next. He'll probably fight twice again now before they book him against Leon.
Yeah, I was going to say he said. On social media, I think it was that he wants, just because that fight's postponed, he still wants to fight on that card or around that time. So wouldn't be surprised to see him fight again. One thing I was very surprised to see today or yesterday was Yoel Romero released from the UFC. Been there for 7 years. He hasn't been on the best of runs, but quite a big name, Dan, to release. Pretty much out of the blue, but Dana White said that he's one of 60 releases which are coming, so it seems like they're going to trim the roster a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more and more evident the UFC's for the younger blood predominantly, and he's had his time. What is he? He's in his 40s.
43 years.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not surprised, and when you see the likes of Anderson Silva and his last performance and stuff. And it really isn't a place for 40-plus-year-olds. I mean, you do get your oddities. I get that, but I'm not surprised. I'm kind of guy because the guy is still capable and can still put up some good performances. But UFC is all about having top tier talent, and that comes with a bit of youth in your system as well. So yeah, I'm not against it. He'll probably go Bellator now.
Well, I don't know. Like I've been saying, I feel like a broken record, but I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I really hoping that Bellator, when they signed like Brett, and they've signed I forget his name, Nurmagomedov, and a few others, that maybe they're changing their outlook and going for some younger guys, and some instead of these kind of. I couldn't believe that Rampage Jackson is still in their rankings, so that was enough for me. But speaking of Brett, Brett's on with us next week. But Richard, obviously you guys are close to Brett. Was that a tough decision for him to leave the UFC and go to Bellator?
No, it was a financial decision more than anything. I mean, he was three wins, 1 loss in his last 4 fights on the contract. So the UFC did offer him a new contract, but we tested his freedom of contract, and to be fair, Bellator have come in and have offered him double what the UFC did. So it's a life-changing contract for the kid. He's still young enough to see this contract out and still have a place back in the UFC down the future. Because I genuinely believe that he will become the Bellator World Champion within the next 18 months. He's that good. Until we've trained with Brett on and off, but since he's come and started working with us full time for the last 12 months, you do really appreciate when you're working up close to him just the level he's at. And we've had a good look through that Bellator roster, and there's nobody there that we don't genuinely believe we could beat. So he signed a multi-fight deal. Financially, it's fantastic for him, but I also think career-wise, I think it's there on a plate for him, to get his head down and become, 2000, even in 2021, I think we'll see him fighting for a title and putting that belt around his waist.
I'm so glad you said that, Richard. You know why? Because last week, when me and Danny were discussing this with Josh, Crazy Osri, I said pretty much that word for word, that I thought Brett was going to be Bellator champion within sort of 18 months. So that means that I know as much about MMA as you. So that's fantastic. That's all I need to know. So moving on to last night. Jack, do you enjoy the show overall?
Yeah, it was another one of them ones. I think it was a bit of a sleeper card. Apart from the main event and obviously OSP and the co-main, there wasn't too many big standout names that you sort of that really jumped off the card, but they always tend to be the most exciting ones. And I think pretty much every fight, apart from the main event, which ended up being fight tonight, was a finish. So you can't ever complain at a show like that. And it's always good to see the strength and depth as well in the division. There's a couple of guys you look at. I'm a big fan of the sport as well, as obviously a fighter. So when you see guys coming through and all ranked, putting on big performances like that, you start to get excited about who they could possibly be up against now that is going to push them through up the rankings. So yeah, overall it was a good show.
Yeah, anything stand out for you, Richard, on the card last night?
Yeah, the undercard, Tapiri, I thought was very good on there. At least we've obviously known about him since Cage Warrior, because he was scheduled to fight Jack at one time for the title, but he couldn't make the bantamweight limit. He moved up to featherweight. But I thought he looked really good. He showed another part of his game. His boxing was outstanding. I think he's going to be a tough fight for most of those guys in the 145 division. And the lad that beat OSP, I think he's going to be a problem for anybody at light heavyweight. Jared, I watched his last couple of fights, and I think he's going to be an exceptional fighter, to be honest. The main event was brilliant as well. I thought it was all over in the first round, but Jack came back, showed a bit of resilience. But I scored it 4 rounds to 1, so it was quite a convincing win. When I think the lad stepped in there, was it a week's notice?
Yeah.
Hats off to him. He's thrown his hat in the ring for a title fight now, I think.
Yeah, he couldn't.
He's lost he lost weight. He went already, haven't he, as well? That's one of his losses early on in his career.
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, as well, is like you say, he came in on short notice, and without finishing the fight, it was about as sort of good, dominant a performance as you could put on. It was really entertaining fight. But I'm a big fan of Marvin Vittori. I just enjoy the way he goes about his business. And I've always, anyone who takes a fight against, Jack Hamanson is a very, very good fighter. So to take that on not very much notice is shows the confidence he's got in himself. And I thought it was very, very impressive. Danny, what did you think of just the overall card, mate?
Yeah, I liked it. You've got to see a mix of everything. You've got that knockout with the takedown, which is
the slam,
really unusual to see that sort of thing. We had some great ground exchanges, with that John Allen and that Roman character. Great ground exchanges. Someone going for leg locks, which you don't see a great deal of in UFC, but you are seeing more of it now. It's definitely going to start establishing its place in the MMA arena. And so that was kind of good to see. And yeah, we had a great striking match with Hamanson and Vittori. And you've got to give it to Jack Hamanson. I mean, he's the one that really made it a fight, because it could have been all over in that first round. Absolutely brutal, Richard. It looked like he was going to be done, but he really turned it on. He really wanted to win this, and that was good to see. But fair play to Vittori. I actually thought Vittori was going to fade as the rounds went on, because that's what we've seen in the past. And that's kind of why I sort of like bet against him a little bit. Hamanson's really good on the old cardio. He's always coming in good shape, and it looked like it was going to start switching come round 3. But now Vittori, he stepped it up again, and he's proved himself to be right up there in the mix. And yeah, he's going to be contending very, very shortly, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. So just to switch gears again, just get a bit of everything. We've been talking a lot about Cage Warriors recently, ever since the first trilogy. It's just been, I feel like that trilogy show, the first one, was so good. Every single fight was enjoyable. You saw some good names, some people cement their names at the top of various divisions. So I'm kind of interested to hear if you guys caught much of that, and also obviously you've got a fighter coming up on the next one. And we'll get your predictions for some fights as well, which we've been doing with the various guests. Jack, did you watch the initial trilogy? I know Oban obviously fought on it. Did you catch much of the other fights?
Yeah, I watched on Oban's card, and what was the main event on the Saturday? I'm trying to think. It was
Mason.
Yeah, Mason. And I watched that card as well, and just top shows obviously from Thursday right the way through to the Saturday. Every single fight was a match, a well matched fight. There was no gimme fights, no record padders, and that's what we just, to be honest, that's what we come to expect now of Cage Warriors for a long time. If you want to fight in Cage Warriors, if you can get in the top of the division, you've earned your spot and your ticket to the UFC, because you're not given any easy fights. You're going to be putting in with high level guys from not just the UK, but also all over Europe as well. And the last show, there was some really exciting fights. Obviously, pushed Mason on to his UFC contract as well. A really big performance from him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to next weekend now. Obviously with Josh fighting as well, but all 3 cards, it keeps me happy. But obviously, the missus ain't too happy with 3 nights. Not back.
Yeah, I know that only too well. Richard, what did you think of the initial trilogy, first of all?
Yes, as Jack said, it's what you can expect. I think they got the best matchmaker in the world in Ian Dean. I think his knowledge of the sport. And I've had this conversation before with people where you often look at a fight and you think, oh, I'm not fussed on it. Then when you actually watch it, you think, yeah, Ian spotted something in that the rest of us didn't, and it turns out to be a great fight. But, just being part of it as well, hats off to Boylan and his team. It was run, so smoothly. The bubble was never broken. The testing, the way they done it, it was, as safe as it could possibly be. Obviously, they had a couple of guys pull out because that's the nature of the current climate we're in with the testing. But they still pulled off three brilliant cards, and I think there's some tasty fights coming up. The one for me that I'm really looking forward to is the flyweight title, Shanks against Aidley. I think that is a really, really interesting fight. It's a 50-50 fight as well. Really, because Hadley's come through, and I think he's looked brilliant. But Shanks in his fight to win the title was absolutely dominant as well. Since he's been up with James Doolan, he's been doing brilliant things. So that one for me is the one that's really standing out, the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, so you set me up beautifully there. So I'll take that. I'm going to just pull out some of the fights, and I'm going to ask you both for your predictions of which way you think it's going to go. If you want to say how you would think it's going to go, you're more than welcome as well. So the first one is Luke Shanks versus Jake Aidley for the flyweight title. Which way do you see that one going, Jack?
I really rate Jake Aidley. I've known about him for a long time, even since before his Cage Warriors fight. He went out to the UFC show, I think it's in South Africa, and he fought a guy, Zulu, his name. I'm not sure if it's from there, but he fought Zulu, who had been on the other fight there. I think he was a training partner of either Mikey Mouse or Henry Cejudo. I can't remember which one, but he was a training partner there, and one of them had brought him into their camp for a couple of months. And he went out there, I think, 3-0, and fought for the UFC world title and just dominated the fight from start to finish. Then he went to Bellator and beat an Irish kid, I can't remember, Blaine O'Driscoll, who again was going to fight for the Cage Warriors belt, has fought for some big shows and some big fights, and put him away as well. So I knew obviously when Cage Warriors signed him, it was a big signing, and then to take out Sajak, who is like probably arguably, if you ask me, probably the best. At the time, I would have said he was the best flyweight in Britain, and just minced him, just made it look easy, too strong, too powerful, and too technical. And so I'm big on him, and I think if he beats Shanks, I think there's a very high chance of seeing him in the UFC then next year.
Yeah, I think the winner of that fight will get a contract. Either Shanks or I think whoever wins will get a contract.
Yeah, they were both super impressive in different ways, weren't they? On the last trilogy, like Luke dominated from start to finish all 5 rounds, and obviously Jake made quick work of his fight. One of the other fights I wanted to ask you about, Richard, was Jordan Vucinich's fight, which I think is on the Saturday. So look, where's he gone? Apologies. So Jordan Vucinic is fighting Paul Hughes on the Saturday card.
Paul Hughes will win. I'm a big fan of Paul. I think Paul's going to be a massive name in the sport. He's very young, really well rounded, from a really good gym over there in Northern Ireland. I think Hughes wins. I think he'll even stop him. I'm going to predict stoppage.
Oof, Danny's head's going to explode now. What do you say to that, Danny? What do you say to that?
Let's watch this place and see what happens. But, I just think one of the advantages that are going to show through is the fact that Jordan's a bigger guy, and I think that's where it'll be told where things are going to be different. I just think they do things very, very similarly in each area, but I just think Jordan's just more of an athlete, more of the bigger featherweight, bigger featherweight. So let's see what happens. I just don't think Hughes has competed against someone that's both strong, athletic, and skilled. Some of the wins that I've seen that he has have had, like where he's taken some of the guys' backs. It wasn't a case of him taking the back; they gave him the back, and those kind of things you won't have that kind of luxury against someone like Jordan. So let's see; it's going to be a great one. I mean, I'm going to be obviously watching it with interest because it's my own student fighting, but more than anything else as well alongside that is I'm just going to sit back and enjoy watching it for the fight that it is, which is a great one. It's a really, really good matchup.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. That's that and a couple of others. I just cannot wait.
What do you think on that one? You've seen both.
That's what I was going to say.
It's a very good fight. Again, I'm very big on Paul Hughes. I've watched him for a good couple of years now, even before he came to Cage Warriors. You're good all rounder, very mentally strong as well. I think he's one of those guys who sort of believes he can't be beat. But obviously in a good way, not in a sort of arrogant, cocky way, but more in a way of he's just very mentally strong. But definitely his toughest fight. Danny had a good point with Jordan's a big guy for the weight, very athletic. So we'll be interested to see if that factors in. But I am going to go with a prediction of a Paul Hughes win. But if Jordan proves us wrong, we'll happily come back on and eat our words, I'm sure.
I'm going to say credit to both lads as well, because they're both at that stage of their career where they both got aspirations of being in the UFC, and they are easier fights out there for both boys. So, you know, it's one of those bouts where you wouldn't knock either camp for turning it down. So fair play to both, you know.
It's a definite number one contender fight.
I think if whoever wins, I should have the title shot next.
You've got a good win fight in Morgan Chapter. I think if Morgan Chapter wins, he'll probably move on to the UFC. Obviously, if Perry wins, I think he'll probably need one or two more. So, I think regardless, the winner will fight the winner of that fight for the belt, you know.
Yeah, I think so. And besides, like I say, I cannot wait for that fight. Sorry, Richard, I didn't get your prediction, did I, for Shanks and Aidley?
I think Aidley will win it. It'll be a close fight. It'll either be Aidley by stoppage or Shanks by decision. It's one of those types of fights. You know what I mean? I think it's an interesting. It's a real, honestly, it's one of them ones. It's not often I'm sat on the fence, but I am sat on the fence with this one because I just think the quality of both lads is such. But as Jack said, Abby's, you know, he's looked something special in his last couple of bouts. The UFC title fight, not, you know, he looked outstanding against Shaq, you know. And as Jack said, Shaq's beaten. I know firsthand I've cornered Edwards and Martin McDonough against him, so I know the level that kid's at. He's beaten Ronnie Man. He went up the weight and beat Ronnie Man, and for him to finish him the way he did, I thought was outstanding. So yeah, I think he could come away with that.
And another one which I'm very interested in is Ben Ellis versus Kingsley Crawford. Jack, how do you see that one going, mate?
I haven't watched too much of Kingsley Crawford. I know he's got the experience on Ben. I think he's 5-2 or 6-2, something like that. I've seen him fight before. I can't remember how he went or what his sort of style is. But obviously Ben has showed a lot of good, you know, for a guy who's 3-0, a lot of good techniques, a lot of good sort of skills, despite only being 3-0. And he's one of those guys again who's got the depth of an amateur record, 7 or 8 fights I think he had. So again, it's one of those. I think whoever wins it, obviously he's not going to put him in title contention, but he's going to give him that right from move up the ladder. I think if Kingsley wins, it puts him in the mix, and if Ben wins, I think he moves it to 4-0, and people are going to start talking about him a little bit more and start looking at him. Is this going to be one of the guys who's going to, you know, push on for Wales a little bit now that sort of Mason has moved on? But yeah, it's one of them ones. You know, if I always support the Welsh boys, so I would pick Ben to win it, but it's not an easy fight by any means. I think, you know, again, it's another one of them ones where they could have easily looked for an easier fight. The two of them obviously got one guy, Kingsley, who's lost a couple of fights ago, on a bit more momentum now, and then you've got Ben, who's obviously a prospect, but looking for that step up in competition. But you know, he probably hasn't had someone of Kingsley Crawford's level in his previous 2 or 3 fights. So yeah, it's going to be a close one, but you know, obviously we always root for the Welsh boys, and more Welsh boys winning the better for the sport in Wales.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Ben's been a bit frustrated. Obviously his fight was off at the last trilogy, so I think he's glad to have this one on. How do you see this one going, Rich?
Yeah, I think you know, Kingsley's got the more experience, but I mean, Ben's been around a long time. He's got you know, I'm just looking at the record here. Kingsley's bloody very experienced as an amateur. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 and 3 as an amateur, Kingsley. I didn't realise his amateur record was so extensive. So
I'm sure he fought Aiden James at
yeah, he lost the decision to Aiden James. He's beaten Antanas Yazbutis, and he's got a win over Lewis Monarch, who's you know, a really good guy. So I think Ben's got the style. You know, he's going to be a problem for most people in that division. He's able, you know, he's got good wrestling. He's, you know, neat and tidy with the boxing. You know, interesting fight, but like how Jack said, I'm supporting the Welsh side. You know, he had a bit of a knockback at the last trilogy where he didn't get the fight, so I'm going to go for Ben, TKO later in late round 2 or round 3.
And speaking of the Welsh guys, obviously Aaron Khalid was supposed to be fighting. At the moment, he's not. Although I know he's still trying to get a fight because his fighter had to pull out. His opponent had to pull out. Obviously, he was very impressive in his victory on the previous trilogy. So hopefully he can get a fight as well. I enjoy seeing the Welsh lads fighting on these cards. One fight I am really looking forward to, and I'm going to be watching with a bit of interest, because it's Adam Armasinger versus Sam Creasy at flyweight. Because the last couple of Cage Warriors events, so we had the trilogy he fought, and then he fought on the one where Mason won the title. And Adam Armasinger, he looked really, really impressive on both. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on against Sam Creasy. Jack, you familiar with both these guys?
Yeah, I also like both of those guys sort of fought on cards that I was on when I was with Cage Warriors. I think it's one of them. If you ask me who would win maybe 12, 18 months ago, I'd have said Sam Creasy and quite comfortably. But obviously the last sort of 12 months, Armasinger have had some really good performances and looked really sharp. And you know, Creasy has been a little bit 50-50. You know, he hasn't been as active as he usually was. I know he had that big loss for the title, and I think he's fought once since then. So it's a real close fight now. And again, it's another one of them. I think it's a sort of backhanded number one contender fight. Obviously, with Sam Creasy, I know he lost his fight before the last for the title, but if he wins against Adam now, then I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in and fight for the belt, and vice versa. I think if Adam wins, you know, he's got good management, good back, and he's a good ticket seller for when the crowds do come back in. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him be put into the title if he wins as well, because again, I think whoever wins the flyweight belt is going to move on anyway. So depending on that fight, it could even be a case of the winner of Singer and Singer against Creasy could even perhaps fight the loser of the flyweight title fight, depending on if it's a full fight or not.
Yeah, there's some top talent at the top of that flyweight division. What about you, Richard? How do you see that one going, Armasinger and Creasy?
It's a very, very close. It's well, very similar stylistically. Both very good strikers. I just think Armasinger's on. He lost to Gittins, didn't he? If I remember rightly. Josh is fighting. Who's moved up away.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think he won his last two.
Yeah, he's definitely won the last two. I'm trying to think if he won.
Yeah, he had a good finish, didn't he?
Conor Hignett. He beat Conor Hignett last time, didn't he?
Yeah, Conor Hignett and Jake Bond time before that, and then he lost to Gittins.
I'm going to go with Adam, and I like both guys. And I like both guys as people as well as fighters. Both, you know, two gents. You know, we've had Sam and Adam on the events we've had down in Wales. So, but I'm going to go with Adam to win that one.
It's another cracking fight, isn't it? And like you mentioned, both of you mentioned about fighting some of these guys could have taken perhaps was perceived as easier fights, but they're fighting, you know, as hard a fight as possible, really. Danny, it's obviously the Cage Warriors. That Cage Warriors trilogy card is looking lovely. Every day it's got some real interesting bouts. Is there a particular fight you're looking forward to over those 3 days?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to obviously be biased and go towards one of my lads that are fighting, but I'm kind of interested to see how Tom Learns is getting on. You know, he fought this guy. He fought Aidley back 9 years ago. I think it was today's date that he fought him 9 years ago. And but he was just a kid and training under a year, and we had a lot of experience over him back all those years ago. So that's going to be a matchup that I'm really interested in seeing. And also, we're trying to get Tom's life, you know, back in order along with his training, and we're trying to get him back down to featherweight. So this one's done at a catchweight. So for me, that has numerous interests. Both, I think, as a spectator, I think this is a great matchup. They had a great fight first time around. I think this second time around is going to be fantastic. I think they're very, 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 very similar in certain areas of their games. It's going to be a case of who's going to be toughest and who's going to strategize best. And that one's going to be really interesting to me. And obviously, you know, there are so many other great fights on that card, but that one has a specific interest for me because, you know, I really need Tom to win this and get him back in the picture. And like I say, it's at a catchweight to get him back down to featherweight, where I think he's quite big and strong and more capable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because Tom's fight on the last trilogy was It was so entertaining from start to finish, and I think he probably, he won it, even though he went down as a loss on a decision. So just lastly on Cage Warriors, we'll start with you, Jack. How do you see Josh's fight going with Gittins in it?
Yeah, Josh, obviously, he's looking really. I mean, I've spent most of the camp with him. Me and sort of Brett have been getting him ready for this. And obviously, Gittins is never an easy fight. He's tough, he's doable. But I think if Josh turns up and fights how he did in his last fight, last time he was out, he looked like the Josh Reed of old. Controlled aggression. He's a big hitter, Josh. So when he lets his hands go, I think, the opponents catch a bit of taste of it, and it sort of puts them on their heels a little bit. So if he comes out, nice and aggressive, but in a controlled manner, lets his shots go, I think he'll back it up and then sort of play into Josh's game plan of whether he wants to seek the takedown or look to finish it on the feet. I think a key in this fight for him is also putting him on the back foot, because obviously you watch Gittins, he's got a very similar sort of, a little bit like a Nate Diaz style. He likes to come forward, back you up on the cage, in the pocket. He's not a big hitter, but he does like to rip his shots, body head, and he sort of overwhelms guys and ends up finishing them, I think, through volume. So I see Josh coming out, patting him up early, and just sort of swaying the momentum and wherever he wants to get him down and sub him or sort of try and look for that knockout on the feet. But obviously, I'm rooting for our boy, the crazy horse, sort of wherever it goes. If he's got to do it in a round or do it in 3 rounds, as long as he gets the win, I'll be very happy to see him back in there.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. Obviously, we had Josh on last week, and really, really enjoyed chatting to him. Like, he seemed like a top guy. Richard, obviously, as his coach as well, and is the concern that obviously he hasn't fought for over a year?
No, I think you see a better fighter. We worked on some of his weaker points. He's been wrestling Jack and Brett constantly this year as part of the pro setup that we've been allowed to train. So, he'd be the first to say to you, he's had his ass handed to him week in, week out, but it's that type of environment what makes or breaks you, and it's been the making of him. His weight's bang on, he's as fit as he's ever been, and, as you can see his story, he's never in a boring fight. And you see a bit of a more multi-dimensional Josh Reed as well. He's a big lad who I don't want to give too much away, but I think you see him use his wrestling a little bit more than what we have done in previous fights.
Good stuff. So just to finish us off, before you two go, just got a couple of questions, really. Well, one question, and then very quickly do UFC predictions for next week, really quickly. So Johnny Wish sent in a question for you both, and he asked your opinion on, he said, sorry it's boxing, but he wanted to know your opinion on celebrity boxing, especially after Jake Paul called out Conor McGregor, and he also says, how do you think that fight would go? Go on, Jack, I'll let you go first on that one.
To be honest, like the celebrity boxing thing, it is what it is. It's not. I don't think these guys genuinely think they could be professional boxers. They're not that stupid. The reality of it is, these YouTube stars, they're businessmen. They're guys who have, they're literally making millions of pounds a month from start, and they all started from sort of doing what we're doing now, sat in front of a computer or a laptop and recording themselves doing different things. They've amassed this big following, and they sort of started off in it with KSI and Logan Paul had a boxing match, and now they're all sort of jumping on the bandwagon. So it's one of them ones. I mean, you look back a couple of years ago, people were saying boxing was dead. So is it necessarily a bad thing that they bring in new eyes to the sport? I mean, they're filling the undercard up with decent talent. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it has its place, but I think the people with any sense and any sort of knowledge will know that they're not actual boxers. I mean, that Jake Paul who fought on the weekend, he can actually box a little bit, but again, chuck him in with a seasoned pro, and he's going to get his ass handed to him. Chuck him in with Conor McGregor.
Can you imagine?
He's saying these sort of things because he knows full well he's not going to end up fighting McGregor, but he'll end up fighting maybe someone like Dylan Dennis or Artem Lobov.
Artem Lobov had plenty to say about it.
And you'll end up making, a couple of million in the process. So,
oh yeah.
And if he gets people swapping, don't he? Like we we brought it up as a discussion, you know. So
Like I would never know who Logan Paul or Jake Paul
not
was
me until this weekend.
for the fact that they had done this celebrity boxing. So they know exactly what they're doing. It's all a scheme to make them more money. They're not as delusional as people think. They're very similar to the WWE guys. You know what I mean? They play off this character and this persona. They know deep down that he's never going to beat Conor McGregor in a boxing match, but he knows by saying that, man, he's going to be all over the headlines and he's going to have more people subscribing to his channel and follow him on Instagram. So I'm not totally against it. But there obviously does come a point where you've got to sort of draw a line. If he is going to make a proper go of it and go pro, like he says he is, then he's obviously got to fight the up-and-comers as well. You can't expect to fight McGregor to make $100 million. Let's chuck him in with... your British champion or your equivalent in America and see how he does on that.
Yeah, I think a couple of things for me. Like, obviously, when KSI fought Logan Paul, like Billy Joe Saunders was on the undercard, and like I saw a lot of people up in arms about that because obviously Billy Joe Saunders is quite a big name within British boxing. So why is he on the undercard? But it's because these YouTube guys have got such a big following. So they sell, the pay-per-views and everything which they do.
How many people who didn't know Billy Joe Saunders was now know Billy Joe Saunders was because they could support that pay-per-view. These YouTubers now probably, or Logan Paul fans and Jake Paul fans, who now probably follow Billy Joe Saunders because they watched him fight on the undercard. And again, if you're someone like Billy Joe Saunders, who is a big deal in the UK, but maybe not so much worldwide then, considering how good he is, he hasn't got... he doesn't get the press and like the sort of Canelos and the Triple G's does. He knows full well by having more eyes on him, he's going to push him into them big fights. So that's why your people like the Billy Joes and your Devin Haney fought on the last one, and Badou Jack was on the undercard this one. They know full well they're probably going to make more money doing that than he would sort of headlining the show. Maybe in Manchester or London. So again, it's all a business scheme. They're not stupid guys, and sort of Billy Joe and Devin Haney, who know the business side of boxing, they get it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, like there's one thing in there for Jake Paul to fight the guy he fought Nate something last week, who was a former baseball player who'd never fought in his life, and he beat him comfortably, knocked him out. There's one thing to fight him, and then just fight even just someone who's been through the amateur ranks and got a couple of fights who's got some proper boxing skills, isn't it?
It's pretty much a white collar match, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You've got two guys with a bit of training behind them. I mean, like Jack said, these guys are multi-millionaires, man, so they probably are paying for some of the top coaches to come in and all the rest of it. But is he going to beat anybody? This like a legitimate pro, not even a champion? Probably not. But like Jack said, it brings a lot of eyes to the sport, so it's not always a bad thing. We went to a Cage Warriors event, me and Jack, when Ross Houston fought for the title in Birmingham, and we got introduced to some YouTubers cage side there, Jack, didn't we? And the one lad was 19 and had a gross worth of 20 million pounds. So they're doing something right.
Yeah, God, yeah. 20 million. If I had 20 million when I was 19, I hate to think what state I'd be in now.
They had fought on the undercard of the KSI.
Well, just to put it into perspective, like the sort of money they make. One of the Cage Warriors guys at the time, one of like the media managers, he's sort of like an app creator on the iPhone, and the reason he knew this YouTuber because he paid him to advertise, advertise his new app on like a pop-up on one of his YouTube channels, and he charged him, I think it was something like £50,000 for something like a 20-second advert, and it wasn't even like it wasn't a promo stretch. It was just where you can put like an ad at the bottom of the video as the video playing. It was one of them like £50,000 for a 20-second ad. So they're good businessmen to be making money.
Yeah, see, Dan, that's what we need to be charging for sponsorship. It's 50 grand just to have something scroll across the bottom of the screen.
If I'd been in school with him, I'd have took his money off him. Then he said, "I've been in school with me."
Right. I know you guys have got to shoot, so very quickly, I'm going to throw these fights at you next week for the UFC, and you can just give us a quick prediction. So we got the main event is Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno for the flyweight title. Richard, who's going to win that?
Figueiredo.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Figueiredo as well.
Danny, any difference now, mate?
No difference. I mean, the guy's on fire, isn't he? So
Yeah.
Sure. And then we got Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. We'll go the same order. Richard?
Oliveira.
Oof, that's a big shout. What about you, Jack?
I'm going Ferguson just because the only time I think I've seen a little bit of weakness in Oliveira is when he's been put on the back foot and he's been forced to fight under a bit of pressure. And I think Ferguson will come out with a point to prove. It's just a matter of whether he will come out a different man after that beating in the last fight. So I'm going to stay loyal to the boogeyman and go with Tony Ferguson.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, this one's tricky because just like Jack was saying, what did it do to him, that last performance that he had? Did it take anything away from him? But because I think the guy's a little bit psychotic, it probably didn't take nothing out of him. So he's no longer a young man anymore, but I know he trains like crazy, so he'll say more youthful than most. Even though now he's in his latter 30s now, isn't he? So I'm going to stick with Ferguson though on this one, just because it's so creative.
Yeah, I got a feeling that's going to be an entertaining one, no matter what.
Yeah.
We've also got a heavyweight bout between Junior Dos Santos and Cyril Gain. Which way do you see that one going, Rich?
Dos Santos, I think, too experienced for him.
And Jack?
Yeah, I think Dos Santos, I think there's still life in the old dog yet. I think, although he's not quite capable of sort of taking on the top 10, maybe, I think he's still got enough about him to see off some of the up-and-comers. So I'm going to go with JDS.
Danny?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the flow on this one. I'm kind of like thinking on the same lines.
And the one of the fights I'm really looking forward to finish on is Mosiano versus Fiziev in a lightweight bout. Richard?
Never heard about what I'm saying, if I'm honest. So,
Was it?
I like. What was the first guy called?
Moisiano.
Yeah, you know Mosiano.
Moisiano.
To fight the featherweight. Yeah. You know him. You do know him.
Oh, Rafael Marciano. That's what threw me. You say lightweight. The Brazilian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with him because I know him. I don't know the other guy.
Jack?
Yeah, same. Literally the same logic. Who was the other guy he's fighting?
Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev.
Yeah,
He's 8-1 from Kazakhstan.
Oh, is he? So,
that changes it.
We'll go for Fiziev.
Danny, which way did you go? Moisiano there or Fiziev?
No, I'm going to go Fiziev on that one.
And
Danny.
Yeah.
And then the final one is Kevin Holland versus Ronaldo Souza. Rich?
Ooh. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland.
He's so unpredictable, isn't he?
And he's so game at the moment. He's on a tear. We all know what Souza's capable of, but I think Holland on the feet will be too much. For Souza to implement the game, he's got to get Holland down. I think he'll have a bit of work doing. That's all. I'll go Kevin Holland.
And Jack?
Yeah, I'm stuck in the middle on this one because I would like to say, based on his recent run, Kevin Holland is on fire. Obviously, I think he had 4 wins or 5 wins this year. Unbelievable striker, very creative. Traditionally, Jack Ray have always struggled against the more strikers, but the only reason I'm stuck in the middle is because I find Holland is very reckless. Like, you watched him against Darren Stewart, he went for something crazy like a spinning attack and ended up on his back, and we all know, he couldn't get up when Darren Stewart held him down. But if Jacare gets even half of an entry, half of a position on the ground, then obviously 99% of the time it's over. So I am stuck on the fence. I'm going to go with Holland just because of his recent run of form, but I'm not 100% counting Jacare out just yet.
And then Danny, just for you to finish us off,
I'm going to go Jacare. I think this guy, he can strike as well as grapple, so he's well rounded. But he actually strikes pretty decent considering, we know him for his grappling. But, he's cracking on in years. How old is he now? He's got, is he in his 40s?
Yeah,
he's got to be.
That's a worry thing. And I've become a bit of a fan of Holland. I really do like his style. I like that little bit of unpredictability along with the gamesmanship. He's definitely up for it. But Sosa's really tidy, and I think that could be the undoing of Holland in this one. I just think he could get caught if he gets put on the ground. He might try something crazy on the ground and do that against that level grappler. It's going to get put away. Yeah. So
100%.
he's tricky one.
40 years. Right, Jack, Richard, appreciate you both joining us. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, and you're always welcome back anytime.
We'll see you next week in London.
Yes, I'll be there.
Have you got anything? Is Modestus got anything lined up? Anything in the pipeline?
He's just had knee surgery. So,
right.
I mean, the thing is with the kid, he'll fight and then be training on the Monday. He's still young, and if there's such thing as being over eager, he's a true demonstration of that. He's just so over eager. You get niggles, and he keeps pushing through. And he's just, I don't know to what extent yet. I'm actually going to give him a call later tonight because we're doing the podcast a little earlier than we normally do. I'm going to give him a call to see how he's doing. But so early next year, but nothing planned.
Give him my best.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Richard.
All right, see you next week, guys. Cheers, Simon.
Yeah, well done, guys.
Rich. See you
Thanks so
soon.
much
Cheers,
for coming on. Cheers, Jack.
Always a pleasure to have those two gentlemen on the show.
That was a treat. Nice treat that was.
Yeah, and I think just vary it up a little bit and have a conversation, because what I didn't want to happen was for us to be kind of midway through the card and then they have to go and then kind of throws it a bit. So I thought we'll have a nice chat. It's got plenty of clips to come out of that as well, which is always a bonus. But me and you will have a little chat now about the card from last night to finish us off. We won't do too long. We'll just have a go match by match. What was the first match on the card? It was the knockout slam, wasn't it, on the main card? So that was wild. Have you ever seen any of them or had that in person where you have the big slam?
I'm trying to think if I've ever been at a fight show where there's been a knockout. No, normally it's a slam followed by some ground and pound. But I mean, obviously over the course of time, we've seen knockout slams before.
Yeah, we've seen a few.
Matt Hughes. I mean, going back a long time, Matt Hughes.
When he was
being put in triangle by, oh my God, what's the name of the guy? Can't think off the top of my head.
Me and you are terrible with names, mate.
Yeah, we are. I just can't bring them up off the top of my head so well. But Matt Hughes was basically getting put in a triangle. It actually looked like that he passed out on the feet. He was in a triangle where he stood up and kind of collapsed, but he ended up knocking the guy out as he fell down. And it went in Hughes'
Carlos
favour.
Newman.
Carlos Newton, that's it. Yeah, Carlos Newton was a good grappler, Carlos Newton, and actually a really good entrepreneur. He sort of like jacked the MMA scene in because I think he went into running old people's homes or something along those lines. But I know he's a bit of an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that out of sheer interest. I'm sure that's what he went into. But he was a really good grappler. I remember seeing him on a MMA event before he went over to UFC, where they was fighting anyone, any weight, and he went up against a massive guy, a really, really big guy. Back when MMA was true MMA, it was people with martial art backgrounds and they had their skill set and nothing else more to go by. So I remember seeing him on that when he was just a teenager, I think he was at the time. But yeah, it brings back memories. But yeah, that was one slam that sort of stood out. But yeah, this one, unusual. Didn't last very long. Didn't happen in the second or third round, did it? It all happened in the first.
I think it was
minute or so.
A minute or so, wasn't it? 22 seconds. Wow. But yeah, and I was looking forward to this fight because they're both very highly rated fighters. Matt Whitman was, I was looking forward to seeing it. He seemed like he was bang up for it, and it's got to be disappointing having it and frustrating because he just Levitt just picked him up and just smashed him down basically.
Matt Whitman is it's not the top tier of the fighter, so it's kind of good for what's the guy's name? Levitt. Is that how you Levitt. How you pronounce his name? Just it's his 8th fight, so still in modern day of MMA, that's quite inexperienced now, really, in the big scheme. So that was a good introduction for him to go up against this guy. But yeah, he put the guy away. I don't think he intended to. I thought he went to walk over and put him in his corner so he had nice, clear instruction, which is a kind of a mature thing to do. But yeah, he got it put away with the slam. Just very, very rare. It must have caught him right at the back of the neck and high shoulders. It was enough to put him out. I guess it can happen to the best of us if we get put on our backs in the right way.
Yes, I think he was concerned, wasn't he, for his opponent? Like as soon as the it was called, he was straight over there to see if he was all right because he was out.
Yeah.
He was not moving.
I think
for
always
a while.
the worry when you get slammed on your neck is have you hurt his back, or his neck, anything along the spine. But I think this was purely impactive. It's almost like what a karate chop would do on the back of the head, back of the neck if you land it right. But in this case, it was the canvas.
Yeah, he took it. It was like a big blow to the back of the head, wasn't it? And I suppose like they said on commentary, that's why you're not allowed to hit to the back of the head,
right?
Because of the damage it can do and the impact it can have.
Sure.
But for sure, it was a big slam. Jack just mentioned WWE. It was a bit like that,
Yeah.
A big slam. So next up was one I know you enjoyed, which was Roman Dolidis versus John Allen. And he went the distance with Roman picking up the split decision, 29-28, 30-27, 28-29. What do you think of this? Roman, I think, was at times a little bit overconfident against Allen. But Allen was like all serious. He didn't play up to any of the antics of Roman talking to his corner, calling out what submission do you want and jumping on leg locks. But they were legit risky,
nice leg locks. They are, yeah. So the commentators picked up on it, and this is something that we talk about in our club. We got a lot of very, very proficient leg lockists. One of my sort of assistant coaches, if you will. I mean, he's more than equal to me in coaching. He helps me a lot with the MMA team, Raymond Paul. He's nifty in every aspect. He can strike, he can wrestle, but this guy, wow, he can grapple. He's not particularly big, walks around at 70 kilos. If he was ever going to fight, he's actually 7-0 as an amateur, but never went into the pro scene. I so wished he would. He's trained with people like Peter Yan and matched people like that in training to give you an idea of how good this kid is. But he works alongside me getting the team ready, really proficient with the leg locks. But look, leg locks do have a place in MMA, but the time best to go for them is right at the end of the round, because they do potentially put you on your back, and if you don't get taken advantage by going to your back and failing with the leg lock, you're going to get someone potentially to scramble back up to their feet. And if they're a really dangerous striker, that wouldn't be a good idea. But done at the end of a round, or maybe at the end of a fight when you're 3 rounds or 5 rounds down, as it could be in championship rounds, and then you just go all out on a leg lock to try to pull it off. It's kind of like the grappling's KO, I guess you could call it, by catching someone in a heel hook.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was going from a little bit prematurely, and I think he underestimated John Allen's grappling game, because he was actually really, really good, and he was good at his own attacks as well. Did you see him from his closed guard into open guard, trying to go for arm bars and stuff? Clearly had live hips and clearly wasn't shy of the ground. I mean, when he was getting put in those leg locks, Roman was failing to create enough bend and control in the knee line to be able to utilize and complete the heel hook. But John Allen was completely relaxed in it, and he got out and there was no mucking about. He was straight back to work. He just wanted it in there. But as the rounds progressed, in one of the rounds, Roman caught a nice body double. I call it a body double, where you shoot for sort of like the double legs, but you go high, and got John Allen down real easy. Got him down too easy, and I think this was a little bit of an error in John Allen's game. And as much as he really worked hard, he kind of showed a little bit of a hole in his game there, and kind of threw that round away. But fair play to Roman. I mean, Roman stayed really, really confident. He nearly went against him with his overconfidence, but his confidence prevailed into that final round. And he did enough to win in my mind. But yeah, mark my words, we're going to see more of this John Allen character. He actually really impressed me last night. Yeah, really liked his game.
He was impressive, wasn't he? I really thought there was just something about the way he was going about his business that really captured like my interest. There was at no point was I kind of like bored in this fight or like looking at my phone. I was glued to it from start to finish. and I just really enjoyed it. Did you say you scored it the same way the split went?
No, I mean, I gave it to Roman in the end. I think like John Allen just looked a little bit gassed at, in that final round. Roman was still having to back foot because John Allen was just constantly coming forward, but he was coming forward towards the end, not really getting anything that consequential off, and Roman was kind of like doing more of the striking, even though he was on the back foot at times. So yeah, I definitely thought Roman won it, but I was kind of surprised it was a split decision.
Yeah, I thought I would say I thought Roman won. I just didn't think it was a split.
Yeah.
Next up was Gabrielle Benitez versus Justin James.
Yeah, that Benitez, jeez, I mean those kicks.
He's a boy, isn't he? Oof.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean this guy's a prospect. Without a doubt. Just dangerous. I mean, even his hands. I mean, his kicks kind of made you, or could so easily make you overlook his hands. His hands were super fast, powerful, and really, really tight. Fair play to his fault. Now, James, he took it to him with the hands as well and got some successes because Benitez had some nasty swelling on his eye, so obviously he was getting some things through, but it wasn't stopping Benitez doing what he loves to do, which is to strike. But those kicks, I'm surprised James didn't show any consequence of those leg kicks and body kicks because they were hitting and lifting his leg right up in the air, but his knee line must have been really, really good and set well to receive those kicks well enough not to have anything being consequential on a physical level. But I'm sure had rounds gone on and had it gone into later rounds, surely those body and leg kicks would have started telling and showing through. But one thing what was picked up, and whether this was a tactical thing, a strategical thing that they wanted to do purposely and go for the rear leg, I don't know, or whether it's just because there was opposite stance, but he was doing unusual setups to go for that rear leg, which was quite impressive because that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah, I mean, he's the real deal, man. He's the real deal. Love watching him. I'm going to look out for that name in future because it's all fireworks when he's on the cage there.
Yeah, it was very, very impressive performance. So Benitez won by TKO 4 minutes 6 seconds into the first round.
Yeah, it was a dirty knee. Dirty knee though, what put him down. He actually fired off that knee a little bit beforehand, feeling it out, and he's doing it to counter the crosshand. Now this is because there was opposite stance. Now the thing is, when you throw your crosshand, if you're going to do a crosshand in any way, whether it's an overhand, a right hook, or a straight right, if you're doing it properly, you've got to be pushing off that rear foot and twisting your body mass round. So it does open the body momentarily to be countered. And because there was opposite stance, he drew through his rear knee, which is his left knee, and it was absolutely beautiful timing, and folded him down. Now, that could have been serious, being hit that clean with that kind of velocity and being that fresh in the first round. It absolutely bowled the guy over. Very, very impressive. And the fact that he threw it probably about 30 seconds to a minute before then, but I think around about 30 seconds before, he was feeling that one out, and I think he just got the measure. And yeah, he kind of knew it was going to land, I feel.
Yes, he did. And next was OSP versus Jamahal Hill. This one didn't go too far either. It was 3 minutes 37 into round 2, with Hill taking the victory.
Yeah, OSP, I like watching him fight. He's quite relaxed, sometimes a little bit too relaxed for his own good. And Jamal Hill come out, looking like he had taken a good shot at speed. Really intense. Probably inexperienced compared to OSP. Come out really, really with sharp hands. Now, he come out with sharp hands, was getting a little bit of success, but then he was getting landed upon with the leg kicks, which I think was a good call for OSP to go for. He looked like he was naturally the bigger and heavier guy, and indeed he was coming at 207.5. So I don't know whether that class as a miss on the weight. I don't know. Did it flag up? I haven't
seen anything about.
I think he was
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it was 207.5. I'm not too sure if that counts as a miss on the weight. I think that might be above their allowance. But yeah, he looked like the bigger dude, and definitely thick set below the waist, really, really thick set. And he landed in a leg kick on Jamal, and it definitely damaged his leg in some way. Now, whether his corner or whether he didn't have a chance to perhaps become aware that he had maybe damaged Jamahil's leg, and work on it and capitalise on it. I don't know, but he didn't go back at the leg enough, and I think he should have done, because Jamel Hill was coming on so thick and fast with those hands and getting confident, because his combinations becoming bigger and more varied, which, you know, goes to show he's fit, getting tenacious and getting confident. Now, he had a little lull in his confidence when he had his leg hurt, and I felt like he should have been targeting that leg a little bit more to try and slow down the hands and the footwork of Jamel Hill, but he didn't do so, and I think ultimately they ended up costing him his fight. But hey, Jamel Hill is new kid on the block. You know, it's what's that now, 8-0. I think he goes up to.
He's building himself a reputation, isn't
he? He could well be something. I mean, it wasn't a polished performance by any stretch. You know, it definitely wasn't polished, but it was tenacious. He's definitely someone to look out for, and definitely going to be improving on his skill set from here on out. Now he's making a stamp in the UFC.
Well, we talked about Jack fighting, you know, with legends and stuff. Like, OSP is a big name for someone like Jamel Hill, who's on this tear and, you know, unbeaten, to go and, you know, he's a name. Whether he, like you said, he wasn't perhaps as fluid and as smooth as he has been in some of his other fights. However, it's a big name, isn't it, to on paper, to kind of click off the list, I guess is the word, isn't it?
He's going in the right direction, that's for sure.
Yes, indeed he is. Okay, so I'm the same as you. I enjoy watching OSP either way.
Yeah,
it's always a very enjoyable experience. But next up was the main event, and it was Marvin Vittori versus Jack Hamanson. As we discussed earlier, Vittori picked up the unanimous decision. I think we all agreed that it was, you know, quite a dominant performance, 49-46, 49-46, 49-45. But talk to me a bit about why Vittori was so impressive.
Well, he just had better range. There was both opposite stance. He just had a better understanding of his range. Now, when you're opposite stance, you know, a lot of the people who even watching, who perhaps even don't train the martial arts, if you show a vested enough interest and you're watching enough MMA and you listen to the commentary, you'll get to know that whoever steps their lead foot outside the other person's lead foot, you start triggering off your rear hand or your rear kicks off more predominantly than you would if you're same side stance. Now, Vittori, he just had a laser beam of a crosshand. His left straight was just constantly there for him, and it really was earning him his money all night long. It was just on the button time again. Yeah. And the thing is with Hamanson, there just really was the predominant difference between them. Hamanson actually had the reach advantage, but was unable to make it work because he kept punching short with his rear side. So he was in orthodox stance, but most of the time when he threw his rear hand, he was having to throw it as a hook. Now, if you're going to be throwing a hook and have a more percentage chance of a hook succeeding, it's nearly always with your lead hook. It's actually really hard to make a rear hook land well, and he kept throwing it kind of as in between a hook and an overhand. It was like he couldn't decide what he wanted it to be, and that was quite simply because he was off balance. And he's off balance because his hips were stiff. He was not driving off his rear foot and not penetrating his rear hip and shoulder. He wasn't doing a thing called ripping shoulders. Now, I work on and off with my boxing coach quite a lot, and you know, getting your cross hand to punch as long as your jab is something that's quite important if you want to start stringing together anything more than one hit. He was really struggling to make anything other than a jab land. Now, he did have his successes at times, and he's going to get any success. Hamanson was getting success with an uppercut, almost as though there was borderline clinching in that pocket, but it was just few and far between. Vittori, for me, was just really impressive, and he clearly changed up his cardio training or his strength training, his conditioning training, because normally we see him fade in round 3. Now, this was a 5-round fight, which is why I thought Vittori might not be victorious come the end of it, because I thought he would start to flag in round 3, 4 and 5, and if he was lucky enough to go the distance, would have the decision go against him. But the guy come out, and I think it's partly because of his cornerman were saying such good advice in that round, coming out for round 4, coming out for round 5. They said, look, you know, Hamanson come back and he's won that round off you. Don't let him win another round. You've got to nail these ones. When he throws, you throw. You keep yourself established, basically, on where you are in that round. Just don't let this guy get ahead on the scorecard, because Hamanson, he really put it on him in that round 3. And just goes to show how well conditioned he was and how fit he was. Now, that along with his attitude and desire to desperately want to win was clearly on display there. But Vittori switched up yet another gear, and like I say, partly because of his cornerman and quite possibly because he stepped up his conditioning training. Because hey, he looked great in round 4 and 5, and they're both trading in the pocket. And what a great fight to watch! And this is a fight that I'd actually show interest in watching it again, maybe tomorrow when 100%. I get time, because it was so enjoyable. There was actually quite a bit what was happening. I want to study their footwork, see who and how and why people were getting their successes. But let's not turn a shy eye away from Hamanson. Hamanson had his successes too in there. You know, not just because of his strong attitude and his fitness to be in there and the desire to win. He did show some great skill sets and some great decision making in trying to get it to the ground. But unfortunately for him, he just didn't have the skill set enough and the clinical cleanness of his technique and execution to get it to the ground and get that rear hand succeeded enough for him to possibly have switched the result the other way. But yeah, great performance for both, but Vittori's definitely moved up in my estimation of his capabilities. He's looking a better Vittori than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, he looks motivated, and he just looks like a top fighter now. And like I was rooting for him a lot in this fight. I just really like the way he conducts himself and the way he goes about his business. And Hamanson, I thought, was a really, really hard fight for him. Hamanson, like, even though that first round I thought it was done, and then Hamanson just kept coming. He just kept taking it, and he kept coming himself. And it was a record, the most strikes thrown in that weight division in the UFC ever.
Yeah, I am not surprised.
By both guys. They threw in the round 5. John Anik noted that each man had thrown 310 plus strikes in approximately 23 minutes.
Yeah, and to think,
incredible.
and that was in round 5, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. That's the final of championship level rounds, and the pace was not slow throughout any of the previous 4. To be throwing that much goes to show the desire to win from both and the commendment of their conditioning. I mean, that's really something.
Oh yes, it's now you've put it in my brain. I want the rematch, I think. But
do you know what? That wouldn't be a bad idea. I think that'd be great. It'd be interesting to see what strategies they bring, because Vittori would obviously have to try and add some new ideas in to keep himself being a fresh, difficult to figure out fighter. And Hamanson, what something new. I mean, he would have to just tidy up on his technical execution of that rear hand and crisp up on those takedown attempts if he wants to stand a chance on beating someone like Vittori.
I'm gonna I wanted to have a quick look at the rankings and see if there's another fight which maybe would be ahead of the rematch. So what have we got? Hamanson.
Yeah, middleweights.
Such a busy division, isn't it?
That is, middleweights is.
So this was Darren Till's fight initially, wasn't it? Jack Hamanson.
Right.
And Vittori stepped in. Like, Vittori, before this, ranked 13. He's got to jump up to at least 10, surely.
You would think so.
Like, the people above him are like Akhmedov, Shabazian, Chris Weidman's at 10. Like, for me, Vittori's got to go above Weidman. I don't know how they work it, though, I suppose. Maybe Darren Till will fight Vittori then, because
that would be a stand and bang show. That would be a stand and bang. Yeah, I think stylistically that's a better fight for Till.
Yeah, I do too.
Because he will strike it out with him. I think that'll be good. And the thing is, for Till kind of switches his stances up a fair bit, as more footwork orientated. I think because Hamanson was coming forward, regardless of whether he was receiving shots or not, kind of suited Vittori.
Yes.
But Till's a little bit more. He's a little bit more in and out, and he'll trade in the pocket. So maybe he'll bring a little bit of diversity that could put problems for Vittori. That'd be interesting match.
Hamanson was when you think that Darren Till's on a bit of a tricky run. I didn't think Hamanson was necessarily the best fight for him stylistically, so I was quite interested by the fact that they went for that particular fight rather than maybe Vittori, like you say, perfect for Darren Till and what he would like to do. So it's going to be interesting which way they go. But that is us, mate, because we've done our predictions. We've done Cage Warriors predictions with them as well. We had a good chat.
Yeah,
Thank
really
you.
enjoyable. Yeah, that was really enjoyable. I enjoy the ones where it's just me and you as well. There's no
man.
issue with that. But when we get new people in and having father and son, top, UFC prospect and clearly one of the best coaches that, Great Britain's saying. I say Great Britain as a collective thing, obviously from Wales. It's just, that was just fantastic.
He's one of the best coaches in the UK.
Yeah.
I could go on.
And that both people are just so true to themselves. They don't put themselves
so knowledgeable,
on a pedestal.
mate, don't they?
Yeah, they're not on a pedestal with their experiences that they've been gaining in recent times. Richard Shaw's just still Richard Shaw, and Jack Shaw's still Jack Shaw. They're allowed to take time out for our little podcast setup, and that's really really commendable on them as characters. Great guys, great coaches, great fighters, awesome pair. Really, really happy to have had them on.
Yeah, the thing which impresses me as well, mate, is they're like a couple. I threw all those different fights at them. Dan told them beforehand that we were going to talk about these fights because I hadn't really decided which way I was going to go because I wasn't sure how much time they had. So we went with the way we went and had like a chat. So I've thrown the Cage Warriors fight to them. They all, they know all the fighters, know all their strengths, all their weaknesses, and and that's not knocking. We've had a couple of fighters on and they've known some fighters and they haven't known others. Because that's not knocking those people, because some fighters concentrate just on their division. Some fighters don't watch fighting, they don't like watching MMA. It's all kind of personal thing, isn't it? But both of them are so knowledgeable about MMA as an art form, as a discipline, that they could talk about it in detail no matter what level of it is. I could talk with Richard Shaw about MMA and just life for hours. I gotta say, he's just kind of one of those guys. And Jack, I appreciate Jack so much because he did Unscripted Uncensored for me back when I think I was 40 episodes in. He didn't have to do that. It was kind of through I just tweeted him and he did it. He found time for it. We gave 75 minutes of his time. And then he came on, obviously, to our show when we did the live show with him.
Sure.
And come on again, you can't fault these people, man. We got another fighter next week, providing there's no issues, which is going to be a very interesting conversation. I think I might have let it slip a bit earlier in the episode as well, but I won't mention it again just in case there is any issues. But it's all booked in, so we should be having another fighter join us next week. And then we're nearly up to Christmas then, mate. I think did I book someone else in as well? Sure, I booked a third person after next week as well. I can't remember, but we've been doing some good numbers, mate, recently.
You've been doing well, yeah.
Doing good guests, good numbers. And trying to work on getting another legend of the game. So we're gonna keep working on that. But we'll see how it goes. I know you'd said about maybe trying to get Linton or someone on as well. So
that's a possibility. It might be worth throwing over a message for Lee Remedios. I mean, this guy's really analytical of the arts, and I think he's well in on the MMA scene still. So that could be a good one to have on. I mean, being that we were former rivals as well, that could be an interesting little podcast.
Indeed, I had him on Unscripted Uncensored as well before, so he's been on.
That's right.
He knows the score and stuff. I'm still waiting for that video as well that you're going to send me, but we won't talk about that now. Anyway, Danny, as ever, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you to everyone who's watched, downloaded, etc. Spread the word. Danny Batten Fight Show is out every Wednesday. We have football shows Monday and Friday live with former Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker Andy Campbell, as well as top guests from the football world. Plus, we have mental health in sport every Sunday with top guests. We had ex-Liverpool and England goalkeeper Chris Kirkland on the most recent episode, and we got a new batch of conspiracy theory shows coming up soon, among many other series and shows. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and search Ace Podcast Nation on your favourite podcast platform. Until next Wednesday, we will see you. Cheers, Dan.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon. Thanks for everyone for listening, and thank you to the Shaw family for coming on as well. It was great to experience and share the podcast with them both.
Top lads.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.